Stafford expecting to see the modern superbikes. In fact, if you were to turn up here and spot something made after, I don't know, 1979, it would be regarded as audaciously arriviste. For this is the classic motorcycle show. One of the most exciting aspects of the classic motorcycle show for me is the Bonhams auction, in which some of the world's most desirable, most valuable and rarest motorcycles change hands. And the big draw in the Bonhams auction this year is frankly a pile of tat. Known as the Bodmin Bruffs. I'm with Jonathan Vickers of Bonhams. Jonathan, tell us the story of the Bodmin Bruffs and how they come to be on sale here today.
Well, it's been a long process. I've known of these bikes for a number of years.
They're all Bruff Superiors.
They're all Bruff Superiors. They're all Bruff Superiors. A little bit of folklore. Some people believe they existed. Some people didn't believe they existed. We were doing a show down in Cornwall last summer, and a member of the public came onto our stand and said that there were these bikes in a little village on the edge of Bodmin Moor, and the family really needed some advice on how to deal with them. So from there on, really, my job was to go and advise the family. I found the location of the bikes, went in there with the family and opened the barn doors, and there they were.
How many in total were there?
There are 8 bikes in total.
Wow.
All Bruff Superiors. He collected them from the early 60s. He was a member of the Bruff Club in the 60s, in the early 60s.
And I suppose when they were stashed away in the late 1960s, early 70s and never used again, they weren't as desirable nor as valuable as they are today.
Well, I think if you look back over the course of history, Bruffs have always been more expensive than your average motorcycle.
They were at the time when they were new,
I think in the catalogue we say that one of the bikes I think had been bought for £100 in whatever year it was, and then was sold the following year for £109. Well, so you can look back through history and realise that actually they've always accelerated in value, these bikes. A little bit like the Rolls-Royce or Bentley of the motor car world, but they've always been that little bit ahead of everything else.
If this guy was a great Bruff enthusiast, he loved his Bruffs and he had this collection, why on earth did he let them decay like this?
That's the one question I've been asked over the course of the last 12 months, more than any other question. The simple truth of the matter is this. He was a farmer. Farming is tough, as we all know, and his priorities were to make money from farming, keep the farm alive, and these really were in the back of the barns, and at the end of the day they played second fiddle to making ends meet. I think when you get over the fact that they are deteriorated, you realise that all of these are restorable. You may not think so to look at them, but inevitably they will be restored.
So, from the States, it's in here. What kind of price do you expect this will fetch this weekend?
The collection is so interesting. They have the potential to do very well. And let's not forget that an SS100 restored...
A good example today.
A good example today is worth a lot of money. So if you had to spend 40, 30, 50,000 on it, you're still going to end up with a bike that's worth a lot of money.
We'll have a look at the detail of the rotting Bodmin Bruffs, and in just 1 second we'll show you what a Bruff Superior can look like. That is beautiful.
Absolutely stunning.
James Stencil is one of the motorcycle experts from Bonhams. Tell us about this Bruff Superior. It's an SS100, is it?
It's a 1938 SS100, matchless engine.
Oh yes, of course, because they switched from Jack to matchless, didn't they?
Exactly. They use proprietary engines and frames.
1000cc.
1000cc. Yep. Sporting example. presented in near concours condition. It just goes to show what can be achieved in painstaking restoration.
And what's the reserve price on this in the auction, James?
The estimate is £140,000 to £180,000, which is a keen, enticing auction estimate.
Well, I would have said for a bruff and the prices that good examples do change hands for, that's pretty reasonable.
Projects and frame fuel tank engine magneto there you've seen on the screen there. Sold as you see it. Where should we start it? 1,000 for it? 1,000 for it, something. Just one.
Sammy, what in the name of God is this?
Well, Andy, this is a 1912 Verdal.
Huh?
5-cylinder radial, as you can see.
It looks like an aero engine, isn't
Well,
it?
it actually was, because 1912, First World War, early navigation, early planes with little engines in them, and this was made in Paris, actually.
Right. What for?
It was an aircraft factory, and they branched into motorcycles.
But what kind of, was it a competition bike or?
This was a board racer,
Board racing?
which was a great sport in the 20s.
Yep. So this would probably have been built for
To take on the Harley Davidsons and the Indians
in the States.
In the States, but never got there because of the war.
Right.
It probably, if it hadn't been for the First World War, it would have probably gone to promote Verdal in America.
Did they make road bikes as well?
They
Verdal?
did, yeah. So they would have probably been thinking about going to America and taking on Harley Davidson and Indian and world sales and world recognition. So
What's it
you'll
like?
have to have a ride on it.
I'd love to have a ride on it.
Are you young enough?
That's what I was.
Are you young enough?
Well, the bike's 104 years old. Do you think I'm old enough?
We just qualify.
Dennis, why have you and your fellow judges decided that this beautiful 1928 Sunbeam, of all the bikes here at the Classic Bike Show, is the best in the show?
Well, I think it's a standout bike, Andy. That's the truth of it.
For which reasons?
Well, because it literally does that. It stands out from the crowd.
John Kelly, congratulations. How long have you had it?
Oh crikey, about 5 years now.
How did you come by it?
I bought it from a guy called Peter Woodward, who's a very talented engineer. He's restored a lot of bikes for the museum, and he'd gone a long way with the bike, but circumstances meant he couldn't finish it. So I bought it as a box of bits. And to be honest, I didn't really appreciate the quality of the bike that I bought until I started putting it together. So basically what happened really was that I was going to basically spray it black and ride it. Once I realised what we'd got, we decided to go a different route.
I mean, I'm not a great expert on sunbeams myself. Is this a particularly rare sunbeam?
They are pretty rare. The 28 bull nose is really, I think it's the pinnacle of the Sunbeam range, really. They won the TT with the 28 bull nose with Charlie.
Like this?
A bike like this.
In which year?
In 28.
Who was the rider?
Charlie Dodson. So they were very successful sporting bikes at the time, and they're basically the Rolls Royce of pre-war bikes.
And do you take it out much? Do you actually ride it?
This hasn't been run properly yet. No, it does run. It's been around the car park, but it literally went down to the wire. We finished it Thursday night.
Oh, just before the show.
John was, when we came here, the paint was still wet on the back of the bike, so it was down to the wire. It was that bad. So it was last minute, but it will get some use, for sure. Yeah, everything's done to run.
Well, you must be very proud and rightly so.
Thank you very much indeed.
Congratulations, Sean.
Thank you. I think that's great. Thank you.
Congratulations, Richard and Pat. You've won the best club stand at the Classic Bike Show. Are you feeling flushed with success?
Well, we've got an embarrassment of riches because not only is it the best club stand, but we have the best auto cycle and 2 highly commended.
Fantastic. And well done. What is it about dots? Why are you so fond of them?
They're quirky. They have their own silly little peculiarities. They're not a mass-produced machine. If you could count them in what Doc's made in probably all their life triumphs that I've done in a year. They don't run into hundreds of thousands. They're rare. They're weird.
All the specialists are here to help you restore every conceivable make and model of motorcycle, from the humble Triumph Tiger Cub to the gorgeous pouting Italian MV Augustas, via stall after stall of the most obscure bits and pieces. Hiya, you all right? Very well. What's this? Malcolm Wheeler, editor of Classic Racer magazine and a bit of a classic yourself. Why do you think there's such enormous enthusiasm for the more historic machines?
I think there are several reasons really. I think you can see every modern bike in every dealer's showroom. But I think we're all, in all walks of life, in all interests, we're big into nostalgia. I think one of my favourite sayings is, the past is the future.
And the demographic of motorcycling has changed, hasn't it, over the years? When you and I were lads, motorcycling was very much a youth pursuit. It was a young man's thing. You look around now at events like this, and everyone's, say, I'm being kind, of a certain age, aren't they? You don't see very many young people involved with motorcycles any longer.
No, I think you're right. I think in the modern scene, bikes are so expensive and it's so difficult to pass a test now.
And get insurance if you're young.
And to get insurance. Yeah. And I think guys like you and I are probably trying to relive our misspent youth. and I'm succeeding.
Yeah. But it's true, isn't it? Young people don't seem to ride bikes any longer, and that's the reason they're out of their price range and they can't afford the insurance and everything else.
Yeah, when I started as a 16-year-old, it was the only way I could get to work.
Yes.
And that no longer applies.
No, it was more of a utilitarian means of transport back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had the tearaways with the FS1Es, and then they moved on to an RD250, and perhaps they ended up on the Kawasaki Z900.
Yeah, and I think that's when it started to go wrong after that period, probably.
Steve Plater, 3 times British champion, twice an Isle of Man TT winner, newcomer to the world of classics and classic races. Someone who now straddles both camps, Steve, why do you think the historic racing bikes, the classics, seem to have much more appeal than the more contemporary machines?
Well, pretty much, you know, the BSB, the modern bikes, has got a massive fan base, of course it has, but the classic side of things, there's an awful lot of enthusiasts with quite a few quid in their pocket going out and spoiling themselves. They're not born-again bikers, but they're just very passionate about 2 wheels, about their old bikes, and not just from the racing side, things they owned when they was younger, and they like to obviously purchase these bikes, put them on show, or come here to Stafford Show, have a look around and find what they used to ride.
So we're likely to see you parading more historic bikes in the future?
Without doubt.
Good man.
Thank you.
need your help with this one. Why are we more fascinated by old racing bikes rather than the modern stuff?
I think basically that those of us that are really into it were growing up in the days when we had the things like the Yamahas and the end of the Norton era, as it was in the old days. It still goes now, obviously. But I think as we were growing up, that's what we went and watched. Now we've got the disposable income to be able to afford to buy it. We're buying what we had in our day.
When I look at modern racing bikes, to me, they all look the same, and they all sound the same as well.
Yeah, you're quite right. I think these were individualised. Yes, people had them, but they would do things to make them different. And nowadays, the bikes tend to be multi-produced on machinery, big machinery, throwing out thousands and thousands a day, and you haven't got that individual thing. It's machines now, whereas in those days we had the mechanics that were working on them, designing them, were passionate on what they were doing.
I'm just going to put my teeth in so we look the same. There we go, that's better, right. You get one handkerchief, I get the other. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to reveal Steve's secret. I can't say Steve's secret either. Right, we're going to reveal Steve's secret. Right. Here we go, Stephen. Here we go. As it's going in there, right, like this. There it goes, like this. And Steve has been trying to keep this a secret for many, many years. But finally, today, we are revealing it here at the Stafford Classic Show.
Exactly. So we want to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all together now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness. Stephen, does your wife know about this?
This is a factory RG 500.
Well, it's not a complete factory bike, it's bits and pieces. It was a bike that I had in 1977, but I had a factory bike and a standard bike, so this is the more standard one, but we used to rob bits out of the spares of the factory department and sort of put them on here where no one was looking. So it's a kind of a bit of a mongrel, I guess you'd say, but also a very, very great motorcycle. It was possibly...
They dominated the 500 class from their introduction, didn't they?
They did, because you have to remember, prior to these, people were racing Manx Nortons or TZ350s or TZ351s they were called, but no one ever made them a 351. They used to just put a different number plate on it so it looked the part. So it was a bit of cheating. You had one bike. It used to be quite funny back in those days. You'd race it in the 350 class, run into your awning and then stick a yellow number plate on that bike and go back out.
To indicate a 500.
Exactly. But the funny thing is, Andy, is that most of my old bikes always end up with a number 7 on.
Parish gets wiped out, does it?
Exactly. They changed the 7, the 6 becomes a 7, and the parish becomes a sheen, and it doubles the value. But you can understand that. I was told by Barry Sheen many years ago the best place to pass anyone was down the straights, and that I was always good down the straights.
Safer, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
And they were fast, weren't they? Because it was on one of these, or the factory version of one of these, that Barry Sheen set the fastest Grand Prix lap of all time at Spa-Francorchamps in '77, I think, which will never be beaten.
No, I don't think it will, because
137 something miles an hour.
That's right. But going back, the reason it won't be beaten is not because the bikes haven't got faster, because they have, but back in those days we didn't have all these little chicanes to slow everyone down.
Circuits were faster.
They hadn't worked out that if you slow people down, they're less likely to die, I'm afraid.
No, well, now you've been inducted into the world of the classics and you're guest of honour here at the show. You must have wandered round, Stephen. You must have seen a lot of racing bikes from an era much earlier than your own.
Yeah.
Do you look at some of those and think, I'd love to have raced that, or even, I'm bloody glad I didn't have to race those kind of...
Yeah, I think I lived in a great period. It was dangerous, but it was a wonderful period, because it was still in a period where the fans could get where the camera is and get close to you, get their autograph.
It was far less corporate, wasn't it?
Maybe get a footrest off you, it was that sort of thing that went on. But I would imagine, actually, just before me, it was probably even more fun, where you're all on Manx Nortons travelling around this continental circuit
Bedford van.
In your Thames or Bedford van and everything else like that. I'm not sure if I would enjoy it as much these days. I think our corporate would have been the struggle for me. I'm sure it would have been. But I do look at some of the bikes that have got tyres that are even skinnier than my RG and probably no brakes on them and things like that. But I don't know, you can't transcend between different eras. I'm very fortunate I was involved in a great period of racing. I got to race with some greats like Agostini and Barry Sheen and all those wonderful riders that were out there, Phil Reed and people like that. And I'm still here, I can still walk in a straight line-ish. I haven't got too much brain damage and can enjoy coming to shows like this, talking to old mates that used to race and seeing the wonderful bikes here.
Right. Yeah, listen, he knows what he's doing. The thing about sidecar trials is the passenger always blames the driver and the driver always blames the passenger. When it all go horribly wrong, the discussions are often heated.